everything goes back to chaos. That statement perfectly encapsulates the world of Dorohedoro. A ruthless world where sorcerers use all kinds of strange magic on humans for no other reason than just to practice on them. And that's exactly what happened to Kaiman. Once a human, he now has the head of a lizard and a strange being inside the head that can only be seen by sorcerers that he shoves in his mouth. Kaiman goes around doing this to any sorcerer he comes across because he has lost his memory, and the being inside his lizard head saying whether or not a sorcerer is the one is the only clue he has. So Kaiman and his friend Nikaido wander around the realm where humans reside, which is also known as the Hole, searching for the sorcerer that cast this curse on him. And that is where this story begins. Dorohedoro is a series written and drawn by Q Hayashida that started in the year 2000 and ended in 2018. For a series that took 18 years to complete, Dorohedoro manages to have a story that flows extremely well to the point where there aren't really any good stopping points in the story at all. This isn't a typical manga that has story arcs. Every major event in Dorohedoro seamlessly leads to the next, and with a wide array of characters that are all relevant to the overall plot, it gives the sense that Q Hayashida really meticulously crafted this story. And with it taking 18 years to complete, you could honestly say that this is her life's work as a mangaka. I have been slowly making my way through Dorohedoro over the past few months, making sure that I was able to fully process everything that this series had to offer. And so after finally reaching the end, what are my thoughts on Dorohedoro? But before we get into this non-spoiler review of Dorohedoro, I do want to say if you do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. All of my social media links are going to be down in the description, so definitely follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I have also left the link to my anime list account down below as well. There you will see, what I have ranked, all of the manga that I have read, and I try to keep it up to date with what I am currently reading. But with all of that out of the way, let's actually get into the review. And like I said, there will be no spoilers aside from things that happen in the first volume. So being featured in both a shonen and a seinen magazine, Dorohedoro is honestly a hybrid of the two, displaying a colorful cast of characters that you would normally see in a typical battle shonen, with the gruesome and hyper-violent action that you would find in a seinen series. It's a series that balances being a very deep, dark, gritty, and even psychological thriller with a mystery that is crafted with so many interesting and important developments, but also being a fun adventure filled with hilarious and outright random scenarios with some of the most lovable characters that I have ever come across in manga. The introduction of many of the cast in Dorohedoro is introduced very seamlessly, with a lot of the characters that you wouldn't think would be relevant actually being super relevant to the actual story, and all the characters fit cleanly into the puzzle of Dorohedoro's narrative. There were many times when reading this manga that I came across characters that I didn't think would have any relevance to the story whatsoever, and then lo and behold, they actually become really, really important later on, or they come back or something like that, and it just really, really awesome. I love it when manga does stuff like that, and like I said, the way a lot of the characters are introduced is just very seamless into the story. Not to mention the fact that I honestly don't see any of the characters as being heroes or villains. Everyone here presented, whether they are presented as the antagonist or protagonist, everybody has blood on their hands. Even the group of characters that are first introduced to be the villains of this story get as much, if not even more, attention and development than Kaiman and Nikaido, our main characters. Initially an antagonistic force, En's family is wrapped in this chaotic story, with them on the hunt for Kaiman, for reasons that tie into the overall mystery that Kaiman is trying to uncover. En is one of the most powerful sorcerers in Dorohedoro, and he is feared by many. En's magic consists of using mushrooms in completely horrendous, but also at the same time creative ways. And with him being able to produce an absolutely absurd amount of magic smoke, this results in some of the craziest moments in the series. En also has a pair of cleaners known as Shin and Noi, who are basically hitmen that do all of En's dirty work. Shin and Noi are honestly two of my favorite characters in the entire series, and they are both powerhouses when it comes to just magical ability, but also combat skills in general. Shin's magic is extremely powerful, with him being able to basically cut anything and anyone apart without killing them. That can be very useful when it comes to like interrogations and stuff like that. But Shin honestly usually opts to just use a hammer to do all his dirty work. He doesn't even use magic. He will just use his hammer to crush his opponents or anyone that comes in his path. Meanwhile, Noi, who also happens to be En's cousin, she has insane magical ability, but her magic power consists of recovery magic, essentially, and very, very powerful recovery magic at that. This leads to her magic being used frequently throughout the series to restore people that would otherwise just die. Not to mention that she's just absolutely ripped, so, you know, if she has to go into combat, she definitely will and will probably win. Shin and Noi's chemistry as partners is fantastic, and both of their backstories are also really, really amazing. By contrast, Fujita and Ibisu, while being kind of like the comic relief of this series, they are also two of my favorite characters, with Fujita being a super grounded and relatable character in the midst of all of these crazy magic users. He is a sorcerer himself, but a low-level one, and seeing him evolve from being just another one of En's minions to actually being an integral part of En's family was just amazing to witness. Then there's Ibisu, who, while not technically being Fujita's partner, which, by the way, all of the sorcerers in the world of Dorohedoro are paired up with a partner. She has so many memorable moments throughout the series, and after literally getting her face ripped off by Kaiman in the first volume, after that, she's never quite the same, and she just becomes this extremely adorable klutz of a character that I just absolutely loved. And memorable moments are scattered all throughout Dorohedoro. Every character gets a chance to shine in this series, which is something I absolutely loved. I didn't even mention other characters like Professor Kasukabe, who actually ended up being one of my favorite characters, along with his friend slash pet Johnson, who is a giant cockroach. And that character is just an absolutely random but welcome and hilarious addition to the cast. Like I said in the beginning of this video, this manga is all about being chaotic. And there are so many other characters I could mention in this video, but I just won't have time to. But before we move on, I do want to talk about our main characters of Kaiman and Nikaido. Kaiman is a character that I grew to love throughout his journey in the series. In the beginning, he didn't really strike me as a super deep or complex character. I just couldn't really take him seriously, even though this entire story is about him finding out the mystery of how he got his lizard head. But by the end, as I learned more about him and his backstory, and you know, once more pieces of the puzzle start coming together, he honestly became one of my favorite main characters in all of manga. Kaiman is silly, he's stubborn, and he has an undying passion for gyoza, but that's what I love about him. Being in his cursed, lizard-headed state means that he's actually unaffected by magic. So when it comes to fighting sorcerers, he actually has the upper hand, and he can be very ruthless when need be. And then his friendship with Nikaido is just one of the best relationships that I have just seen in a manga series. It's a friendship that faces many unexpected challenges throughout the course of the story. So in different points throughout the narrative, when they're separated, it's always a treat to see them come back together again. And then there's Nikaido, who is quite possibly my favorite character in the entirety of Dorohedoro, but pretty much anything that I could say about her could potentially be a spoiler. Just like Kaiman, she is incredibly relevant to the overall narrative. She's extremely important, and her character development is just absolutely incredible throughout the series. In the beginning, she comes across as this very happy person, but as the emotional and just mental baggage that she carries is unveiled throughout the narrative, she really becomes a character that I personally really resonated with a lot. Like I said before, there are moments where Kaiman and Nikaido go off and do their own separate things, and the same can be said about all of the characters in Dorohedoro. It was always a treat seeing characters that I didn't think would interact for them to actually have moments together, and that's something that I really did love about this series. Just all of the different matches that are made within the series, and all of the characters that you wouldn't expect to have known another character, and characters that you wouldn't have expected to see fight each other, and then other characters that you wouldn't expect to actually team up. There are so many unexpected twists and turns, and by the end it all culminates into a just absolutely insane final act where everything finally starts coming together. Like I've mentioned throughout this review, chaos plays a central role in what Dorohedoro is actually about. The chaos, however, can be seen as a negative in some aspects of the story. While I personally really enjoyed all of the comedic moments, I don't think that they're going to be for everyone, especially someone who is going into the series expecting a really dark and deep story. Meanwhile, the over-the-top gore and just gritty art style may not actually be for everyone, especially those who are looking for just a very fun adventure series. For me, I came to appreciate the chaos that's presented here, as it gave me a little bit of everything that I like in a manga. Great and memorable characters? Check. An intriguing and thrilling mystery that kept me on my toes? Check. Hilarious moments that genuinely made me laugh out loud multiple times throughout the course of the story? Check. The only thing for me that was negatively affected by the chaos was just the overall pacing. The story just throws you into this world, and as a reader, it won't hold your hand when it comes to figuring out how this world works. And I genuinely did enjoy that aspect of the introduction, but there were some moments where I personally felt like Q Hayashida was still trying to figure out what direction to take this manga in. And that's why, honestly, if you're gonna give this series a shot, I would highly recommend you to read the first 3 volumes, as when I was at that point myself, it gave me a better grasp for the series, and it made me really want to continue the series from that point. After that, it's just a wild ride that keeps getting crazier and crazier as you'll get introduced to multiple different storylines and plot lines happening all at once. These different perspectives jump around a lot in the middle portion of this manga, and having all of these different perspectives can be very confusing. It almost forced me as a reader to really slow down and really take everything in as I was reading it. There are minor details that could honestly get lost if you're not paying attention throughout all of the chaos of the different, storylines and perspectives happening, that will actually end up being very important down the line. While by the end of the series, I came to really appreciate the chaos that makes up Dorohedoro, but just as a reading experience, it can be seen as a negative, especially on your first read through. And before I get into my final thoughts on Dorohedoro, I do want to touch on Q Hayashida's art. Honestly, there isn't really much I can say except that the artwork is fascinating. The way that Q Hayashida is able to display such a gritty and dark and sketchy art style while simultaneously being extremely detailed and layered is honestly really impressive. The character designs are some of the most creative in a fantasy manga. The way that certain magic spells affect the environment and just the way that they're portrayed in the manga is just insanely creative and makes for some truly insane panels as well. While the environments, whether it be, you know, the Sorcerers realm or in the whole, are just really, really immersive, and Hayashida's art truly makes the world come alive. All in all, Dorohedoro manages to be one of my favorite series that I have read yet. It's a manga that I will forever cherish, and I'm already looking forward to reading it again in the future. Q Hayashida really crafted what in my eyes is a near masterpiece with this manga, and to me it's a solid 9 out of 10. If you're looking to read this manga, it is released by Viz Media in 23 volumes, each retailing for $12.99, and there is also an anime adaptation by Studio Mappa, which you can watch on Netflix. Currently there is only one season out, which if I'm not mistaken doesn't even cover a third of the manga, and while the art is generally a lot better in the manga, I have watched a bit of the anime and so far it's a really solid adaptation. One more thing that I forgot to mention is that I did do a first impressions video on Dorohedoro, so if you liked this video then make sure to check that one out. In that video, I compare the first 3 volumes of Dorohedoro to the first 3 volumes of Die Dark, which is Q Hayashida's other more recent ongoing work. So definitely check that video out if you're interested. It will definitely be interesting seeing my initial reactions to Dorohedoro in that video. So yeah, I did just want to shout out that video in case anybody hasn't seen that one. And with that, that does it for this review. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Let me know down in the comments if you have read or watched Dorohedoro. Let me know your thoughts on it and what you would rate this manga. But also let me know if you're more interested in actually checking out Dorohedoro because of this review. Like I said, I hope you guys did enjoy it. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.